Two hearts, one destiny, written by God. A whisper of love, tested by fire. Distance, doubt, and a covenant that cannot break. From a quiet village to the holy city of Edenbrook, this is their story, their song, their love.
The Audio Pagers presents Fragrance of Love, written by Henrietta. Chapter 1. The Fragrance of His Name. The morning sun spilled across the vineyards of Edenbrook like liquid gold, kissing every leaf awake. Zara walked slowly between the rows of grapes, her fingers brushing the tender vines as if they were threads of a dream she was yet to understand. Her shawl fluttered in the soft wind, carrying with it the scent of pressed flowers and hope. She had always loved this place, the quiet hum of bees, the laughter of children from the mission school nearby, and the faint music drifting from the open field where preparations for the Edenbrook revival were underway. And then she heard his voice, low, warm, like honey poured into sunlight. Let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. Song of Solomon 1:2. He was reading scripture aloud, and every word seemed to stir something secret within her. She turned, and there he was, Solomon Ray, the worship leader everyone whispered about, the one whose songs could quiet a stormed heart. His presence was calm, his eyes deep, as if he carried both heaven and heartbreak inside him. Their gazes met briefly before he looked away to continue arranging the instruments for the night's worship. Zara felt her breath catch. It wasn't just attraction, it was recognition, the kind that made her heart whisper, I've seen this so before, somewhere in prayer. Later that evening, under a sky drenched with stars, the revival began. The worship was like fire and water, cleansing, burning, healing. Solomon's voice rose above the crowd, every lyric an offering. Your name is like perfume poured out. No wonder the maidens loved you. Song of Solomon 1:3.
Zara closed her eyes. It felt as though he wasn't just singing about God, but to her, with a lover's devotion.
Tears gathered at the corners of her eyes. As he sang, she caught a glimpse of something in his expression, vulnerability. As though behind the worshipper's boldness lay a man who knew the ache of waiting, of praying for love not yet revealed. When the service ended, Solomon spoke a simple benediction and began to pack up. Zara stayed back, hesitant, her heart whispering prayers she didn't dare speak aloud. Then, unexpectedly, he approached her. You were standing near the left rows, he said gently. I saw you worship. It reminded me of Hannah, pouring her soul before the Lord. She smiled shyly. I wasn't even aware anyone noticed. I did, he said softly, then hesitated. There's something pure about how you love God. It's rare. Her cheeks warmed. And you sing like someone who's seen his face. Their laughter came easily after that, light, free, innocent. But as the evening breeze swept between them, something unspoken lingered, something holy and fragile. When she returned home, Zara couldn't sleep. She opened her worn Bible, and her eyes fell upon the words, Draw me, and we will run after you. Song of Solomon 1:4. She whispered, Lord, if this stirring is from you, keep it pure. But if it is not, take it from me. Across town, Solomon knelt by his bedside, whispering the same words he sang hours earlier. Set a seal upon my heart, Lord. I only want what carries your name. As the night deepened, both their prayers rose like fragrance, meeting somewhere unseen, carried by the same Spirit. And while Edenbrook slept, heaven smiled, for love had begun to awaken. But love's awakening always invites a test, and before the next sunrise, that test would begin.
Chapter 2. Beneath the Apple Tree. Morning came softly over Edenbrook, carrying the scent of dew and ripened grapes. Zara awoke before the village bells rang, her heart still full from the previous night's worship. She tried to pray, but each word returned to one name: Solomon. She shook her head, smiling at herself. Focus, Zara. You came here to serve, not to dream. The vineyard outreach began later that day, volunteers gathering fruit for the mission school and helping the elderly farmers. The air was alive with laughter, the rhythm of work, and the flutter of songbirds. Zara was kneeling beside an apple tree, sorting baskets, when she heard that same calm, familiar voice behind her. "Still tending the garden, I see," Solomon said, his tone half playful, half reverent. She turned, startled, and there he stood, holding a basket filled with fruit. His shirt sleeves were rolled, his hands dusted with soil. Gone was the worship leader who commanded a crowd. Before her stood a man, simple, grounded, human. She tried to hide her smile. "Even Adam had to tend before he named," she replied lightly. He laughed softly. "Then perhaps Eve was the real gardener." Their eyes met, and for a moment the world went still. "Like an apple tree among the trees of the wood, so is my beloved among the sons. In his shadow I delighted and sat down, and his fruit was sweet to my taste." Song of Solomon 2:3. The words came to Zara's mind unbidden, and her heart quickened. They worked side by side all afternoon, talking about music, scripture, and what it meant to truly love God. She learned that Solomon had lost his parents young, and had been raised by his grandmother, a prayer warrior, who taught him that a man's first romance must be with heaven. She listened in quiet awe. She too had known loss. Her father had passed when she was 13, and her mother's faith had kept their home steady. By evening, the others had drifted back to the mission house, but the two of them lingered beneath the apple tree. The sky glowed amber and lavender. Solomon picked up his guitar and began strumming a soft melody, a song without words. It felt like a conversation between his heart and God's. Then, almost in a whisper, he sang, "Rise up, my love, my fair one, and come away. For lo, the winter is past, the rain is over and gone." Song of Solomon 2:10-11. Zara closed her eyes. The lyrics brushed against her soul like gentle rain. She wanted to stay in that moment forever, beneath the tree, beside this man who spoke heaven's language. When he finished, silence settled around them. The world felt smaller, safer, like they were enclosed in a secret only God could see. Solomon looked at her, something unreadable in his eyes. "Zara, do you ever feel that God writes certain people into our story before we even know it?" Her heart fluttered. "Maybe," she whispered, "or maybe he writes the story first and then lets us discover the pages together." He laughed at that, a slow, knowing smile. "Then maybe we're standing on one of those pages." A hush fell between them, tender, electric, holy. But before either could say another word, a voice called from the distance, "Solomon, the pastor needs you at the chapel. Quickly." He stood, brushing off his hands. "I'll see you tomorrow." "Yes," she breathed, although she wasn't sure if she said it aloud or just in her heart. He turned to go, then paused once, looking back. "Don't let the foxes spoil the vines," he said gently. Her brow furrowed. "What do you mean?" He smiled faintly. "Sometimes it's the small things, doubt, fear, distraction, that destroy what God plants. Guard your heart, Zara."
And then he was gone, walking into the fading light. She sat beneath the apple tree long after, her fingers tracing the bark where sunlight had touched. His words echoed in her heart, "Don't let the foxes spoil the vines." That night, as she knelt in prayer, she couldn't shake the unease that crept in with the shadows. Outside, the wind shifted suddenly, cold and strange. Somewhere far off, the chapel bell rang 3 times, though no service had been called. And in that moment, she knew something was coming, something that would test every word, every promise, every prayer.
Chapter 3. The Voice of My Beloved. For 3 days, Edenbrook was drenched in rain. The vineyard paths turned to streams, and the mission school stayed closed. The apple trees bowed low, heavy with water, their branches whispering secrets in the wind. Zara sat by her window, tracing raindrops as they slid down the glass. Solomon hadn't come to the vineyard since that evening beneath the apple tree. His absence left a quiet ache, not loud enough to wound, but deep enough to linger. Every sound seemed to remind her of him. The echo of guitar strings, the rhythm of the rain, even the gentle rustle of her Bible pages. She tried to silence her heart, but it beat stubbornly with his name. By night on my bed I sought him whom my soul loveth. I sought him, but I found him not. Song of Solomon 3:1. She whispered the verse, feeling its weight. Had she imagined everything? Was it foolish to think that God had written their stories to meet? On the 4th day, the rain stopped, and sunlight broke through the clouds like grace returning. Zara decided to visit the chapel. Perhaps Solomon would be there, practicing for the next revival service. But when she arrived, she found the place strangely quiet. Only Pastor Joel stood at the pulpit, rearranging song sheets. "Pastor," she greeted softly, "I came to see Brother Solomon. Is he—" Pastor Joel's expression softened. "Ah, child. He left early this morning for Lagos. There's a worship conference. He'll be gone a while." "Gone," she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. "He didn't want distractions before leaving, but he asked for prayers." Zara nodded slowly, forcing a small smile. "Of course." She walked home in silence, her heart heavy but strangely at peace. If God had written this connection, he would sustain it, distance or not. Still, as the evening drew near, she found herself sitting under the same apple tree, her Bible open but unread. The wind moved through the leaves like the breath of God. Then faintly, as if carried on the air, she heard it, a melody, familiar, deep, haunting. She stood abruptly. It was Solomon's voice, distant yet unmistakable. "The voice of my beloved. Behold, he comes leaping upon the mountains, skipping upon the hills." Song of Solomon 2:8. Her breath hot. Could it be her imagination? No, the sound grew clearer. Someone nearby was tuning a radio, and through the crackle came Solomon's song, live from Lagos. The same voice that had once filled the Edenbrook skies now filled the airwaves, reaching her through miles and mountains. He was singing one of his new worship songs, and the words pierced her heart. "If love is from you, Lord, then distance is only an altar where trust is tested and faith is refined." Tears slid down her cheeks. It felt as though he were speaking directly to her, as though his voice had crossed the distance just to remind her of what was true. She knelt on the grass, lifting her face to the fading light. "Lord," she whispered, "teach me to wait. Let this longing be holy. Let it draw me closer to you, not away." In that moment, peace settled over her like a warm cloak. The same spirit that whispered through Solomon's song now whispered to her heart. "Until the day breaks and the shadows flee away, turn, my beloved, and be like a gazelle upon the mountains of separation." That night she slept with the radio beside her, replaying his song until dawn. But as morning came, a letter arrived at the mission house, sealed in gold. The sender's name read Solomon Ray, Lagos City Revival.
Her hands trembled as she opened it. "Zara, the Lord is doing something in my heart, something I don't yet understand, but it began beneath that apple tree. Pray for me. I will return soon, and when I do, there are words I've been holding that only you should hear. S."
Zara pressed the letter to her heart, her tears falling onto the page. She whispered the only words she could manage. "Come quickly, my beloved." But deep down, she sensed it. Something unseen was stirring. Because where God plants love, the enemy often plants distraction. And before Solomon could return, a new voice would rise, one that would test her devotion, her patience, and her heart.
Chapter 4. The Little Foxes. The rains had ended, and Edenbrook was alive again. Vines bursting with fruit and laughter echoing through the mission grounds. Yet Zara's heart felt strangely quiet. It had been 3 weeks since Solomon's letter arrived. No more words came after that. She held the golden-sealed envelope like a fragile treasure, rereading it until she knew every curve of his handwriting by heart. Still, silence can be a test, one that echoes louder than storms. Each evening she went to the apple tree, reading the Psalms aloud to steady her soul. Sometimes she prayed for him. Other times she simply whispered into the dusk, "Lord, keep him where I cannot." Then, one afternoon, as she helped prepare food for the next outreach, a man arrived at the mission house, tall, refined, and smiling easily. "Good afternoon," he greeted warmly. "My name is Declan Neddy. I'm from the City Fellowship Board. I will be assisting with the Edenbrook project while Pastor Joel is away." Zara smiled politely, offering her hand. "Welcome to Edenbrook, Brother Declan." His handshake was firm, his words smooth. Over the next few days, his presence filled the mission like perfume, noticeable, lingering. He was kind, articulate, and quick to compliment. But with every charming word, Zara felt a quiet warning rise in her spirit. One evening, as they walked back from the chapel, Declan said, "Zara, may I be honest?" She nodded, unsure. "You have a grace about you, like a song waiting for someone to sing it." Her heart skipped, not in delight, but discomfort. "That's kind of you," she murmured, looking away. He smiled faintly. "Forgive me if I'm too forward, but I've seen the way you serve, and I can't help but think any man would be blessed to have your heart." Her steps sloughed. The memory of Solomon's words echoed inside her. "Don't let the foxes spoil the vines." "Brother Declan," she said softly, "the only man who deserves that kind of praise is the one who first left me." He laughed lightly, not offended. "Then may the rest of us learn from him." But that night Zara couldn't rest. She prayed beneath the flickering lamplight, her Bible open to Song of Solomon 2:15. "Catch for us the foxes, the little foxes that spoil the vines, for our vines have tender grapes." She whispered, "Lord, guard the vineyard of my heart. Don't let small things destroy what you have planted."
2 days later, another letter came, but this time not from Solomon. It was a notice from the City Fellowship Board announcing that Solomon Ray's Lagos revival had been extended indefinitely. They praised his anointed worship and mentioned that he would be touring across other cities. Zara's hands trembled. Extended? Indefinitely? Touring? For a moment she couldn't breathe. Doubts seeped in, soft, subtle, poisonous. Had she imagined everything between them? The looks, the prayers, the letter sealed in gold? She tried to pray, but her heart ached with silence. That evening Declan found her again near the apple tree.
The sunset poured crimson light through the branches, the air heavy with unspoken things. "You've been distant," he said gently. "Is it because of him?" She hesitated. "Who?" "Solomon," he said simply. "Everyone's talking about him. They say he's rising fast. Fame does that to people." Her lips parted, but no words came. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Zara, sometimes we wait for someone who's already moved on. Don't let your heart wait in vain." Her chest tightened. "You don't understand." "I do," he interrupted softly. "You deserve someone present, not just someone who once sang to the stars." The tears she'd been holding finally slipped free. "Please," she whispered, stepping back, "don't." He nodded slowly, his eyes full of something unreadable, part sympathy, part disappointment. "Then I'll pray for peace in your heart, because even faith can fracture when silence lasts too long." When he walked away, the evening wind stirred the branches above her, scattering apple blossoms across the ground. Zara fell to her knees, clutching her chest. "Lord, what are you doing? Did I mishear you? Did I hold on to something you never promised?" The only answer was the rustle of leaves and the far-off cry of a dove, soft, mournful, lingering. Yet in that silence a verse rose gently to her heart. "My beloved is mine, and I am his. He feeds among the lilies." She wept, clinging to that truth, even when everything else felt uncertain. But as she lifted her face toward heaven, she didn't see the figure standing at the edge of the field. A man watching quietly, his heart torn between duty and desire. Solomon had returned to Edenbrook earlier than anyone knew, and what he saw beneath the apple tree shattered him.
Chapter 5. Awake, O North Wind. Night had fallen over Edenbrook, thick and fragrant with rain-soaked earth. The revival tents stood empty, and the only light came from the chapel windows, flickering like hearts refusing to go out. Solomon stood in the shadows of the vineyard, the chill wind tugging at his coat. He had returned quietly, intending to surprise Zara, only to find her kneeling beneath the apple tree, with another man standing too close, his words drifting through the dusk like poison. He hadn't stayed long enough to hear the whole conversation, just enough to feel the sting of misunderstanding. Jealousy is cruel as the grave, the coals thereof are coals of fire. Song of Solomon 8, verse 6. For the first time in months, the melody and his heart went silent. The next morning, Zara arrived at the chapel early for prayer. She was startled to see him standing near the altar, sunlight falling across his shoulders like a mantle. "Solomon," she breathed, hardly trusting her eyes. He turned. "You look surprised." His tone was even, but his eyes carried storms. I didn't know you were back. I wanted to see for myself how Edenbrook had changed, and how you have changed." Her heart sank. "You saw me with Brother Declan?" "Yes." Silence stretched between them, heavy and sharp. I was telling him no," she said finally, voice trembling. "He said things that weren't true, and I asked him to stop." He looked away. "Zara, I've learned that sometimes silence speaks louder than denial." Tears filled her eyes. "So you came all this way to doubt me?" He flinched, then sighed. "No, I came all this way to fight for clarity, but instead of answers I found confusion." She stepped closer, her voice breaking. "Solomon, when you left, you wrote that letter. You asked me to pray. I did every day, but you never wrote again. You disappeared." He closed his eyes. "The ministry in Lagos grew faster than I expected. People kept pulling at me. I thought distance would prove whether this, whatever this is, was from God." Zara wiped her tears. "And what did you find?" He hesitated.
that every song felt empty without the one person who made me hear God in every note. Her heart skipped. "Then why are you so angry?" "Because," he whispered, "love has made me both brave and afraid." The confession hung between them like a fragile flame. Then he took a slow breath, his tone softening. "Awake, O north wind, and come, O south. Blow upon my garden, that its spices may flow out." Song of Solomon 4:16. He reached for her hands. "Zara, the Lord's been stirring the winds around us, testing what's real. I don't want a feeling, I want a covenant. But we must let him blow away everything false before we can build what's true." Her tears fell frailly now. "Then let him blow, Solomon. Let him strip us bare if he must, but let him leave what's pure." He smiled faintly. "That's what I love about you. You never run from the pruning." They knelt together, hands entwined. The chapel floor cooled beneath them. The air seemed to shift, gentle yet fierce, like invisible winds moving through the rafters. As they prayed, the Spirit whispered peace back into the silence. The heart steadied. Forgiveness took root. When they rose, Solomon reached into his pocket and drew out a small velvet box. Her breath caught. "Before I left Lagos," he said softly, "I told the Lord that if I should return to Edenbrook, it would be to seal something he began. I don't have fancy words, only this promise. I will love you as Christ loves his church, sacrificially, faithfully, endlessly." He opened the box. Inside lay a simple gold ring shaped like a vine, a small cross at its stem. "Zara," he whispered, "will you be my wife? Not as the world loves, but as the word commands." Her voice trembled. "Yes, 1,000 times yes." Joyful the chapel like morning light. They wept, laughed, and prayed again, their hearts overflowing with gratitude. "Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for love is strong as death." Song of Solomon 8:6. Outside, the north wind stirred through the vines, scattering blossoms like confetti from heaven. Yet even as they embraced, a distant knock echoed through the chapel doors, sharp, urgent, unfamiliar. Pastor Joel burst in, breathless. "Solomon, Zara, you must come quickly. The mission house, it's on fire." Their hands tightened instinctively around each other. The scent of smoke drifted through the open window, curling like a warning. Love had just found its zeal, and now it would face the flames.
Chapter 6. Sealed Upon My Heart. The night sky burned red over Edenbrook. By the time Solomon and Zara reached the mission house, flames were already licking the roof like tongues of judgment. Villagers ran with buckets, shouting prayers and warnings. Children cried. Bibles lay scattered in the mud. Solomon's heart pounded. "The students, where are they?" "They've been moved to the school hall," Pastor Joel shouted through the smoke. "But the east wing's still burning, the storeroom and the chapel archive." Without hesitation, Solomon ran toward the fire. Zara followed, coughing from the thick smoke. Inside, heat pressed against their skin like wrath itself. The air shimmered. Scripture scrolls and old hymn books crackled in the blaze. Zara's eyes stung as she spotted the small wooden chest where the orphanage records were kept. "Solomon, the files!" she cried. He covered his face with his arm and dashed through the doorway. Flames clawed at his sleeve as he grabbed the box and turned back just as part of the ceiling groaned. "Solomon!" she screamed. The beam fell. He dove forward, barely clearing it. The crash shook the floor. Zara caught his arm, pulling him toward the open air. Together, they stumbled out as the crowd cheered. Moments later, the roof collapsed, sparks showering the night like fiery rain. They sank to the ground, breathless, clinging to each other. Smoke curled around them like a dark veil. "Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it." Song of Solomon 8:7. Zara whispered the verse against his shoulder, and he felt her tears mingle with the rain that had begun to fall. The fire hissed and softened under the downpour. until only embers remained, red as their trembling hearts. Later, when the ruins had cooled, they walked through what was left. The chapel cross still stood, blackened, but upright. Solomon traced its scorched edges and murmured, "Even fire bows to the one who forged love." Zara's voice quavered.
"Everything's gone." He shook his head. "Not everything. The Lord keeps what matters." From the wreckage he lifted the small velvet box, the necklace, untouched, glinting faintly beneath soot. He turned to her, eyes glistening. "Love may pass through fire, but what is sealed by God cannot be consumed." She covered her mouth, weeping softly. "Then let this be our altar." They knelt beside the smoking beams, joining hands over the rescued necklace.
"Set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for love is strong as death." Song of Solomon 8:6. Their prayer rose through the scent of ash and rain. "Lord, make our love a testimony, not of ease, but endurance. Let others see you in the ruins." A calm, holy silence settled. The same wind that had once carried music now carried peace. Days passed. The town rebuilt slowly, faith stronger than before. News spread of miracles. No one had perished, and the old cross at the chapel's front refused to fall despite the flames.
As the sun set one evening, Solomon and Zara stood again beneath the apple tree, where it had all begun. Blossoms had returned, pale and fragrant, a promise of renewal. "Every trial," Solomon said quietly, "was God teaching me to love past emotion, to love in fire, in distance, in silence." Zara smiled through tears. "And I've learned that waiting isn't wasted when it's worship." He wore her the necklace. The gold gleamed softly in the twilight. "From this day may our hearts stay sealed, not by circumstance, but by covenant." She leaned her head against his shoulder. "Where you go, I'll go. Where you lodge, I'll lodge. Your God will be my God." He kissed her forehead gently. "Then let the wedding wait only long enough for the garden to bloom." Far above them, doves circled the sky, their wings catching the fading light. But as the last rays of sunset dimmed, a letter arrived in the hands of a weary messenger addressed to Solomon Ray. He opened it slowly. His expression changed, first confusion, then awe. "What is it?" Zara asked softly. He looked up, eyes wide. "An invitation from Jerusalem Mission. They're asking us to lead worship for a global revival, together." Her breath caught. "Jerusalem?" He nodded, wonder spreading across his face. "Where the song first began." She smiled through tears. "Then perhaps that's where it will be fulfilled." He took her hands once more, whispering, "The fire tested us. Now the journey will prove us." And somewhere in the quiet of the vineyard, the wind stirred again, not harsh this time, but tender, carrying the promise of John. Love had survived the flames. Now it was ready to bloom before the world. Chapter 7. The Garden of Love. Jerusalem shimmered in the dawn light, gold rooftops glowing like embers of heaven, olive trees whispering in the wind, and bells echoing across the ancient hills. Solomon and Zara stood at the edge of the Mount of Olives, hearts trembling at the sight. It had taken months to get here, months of rebuilding, praying, and waiting. The journey from Edenbrook to the Holy City felt like walking through Scripture itself. Each sunrise had been a reminder. He brought me to his banqueting house, and his banner over me was love. From Song of Solomon 2, verse 4. Now, beneath the same sky that once heard David's songs and the cries of prophets, they were called to lift a new song, one born from ashes, yet radiant with grace. The revival ground was set in a vast garden near the old city walls, filled with worshipers from every nation. As Solomon strummed his guitar softly, Zara's voice rose, pure, trembling but sure. Arise, my love, my fair one, and come away. Song of Solomon 2, verse 10. The words floated over the crowd like perfume from crushed myrrh. People lifted their hands, tears streaming. It wasn't just a song anymore. It was a confession of every heart that had ever waited, ever believed, ever loved through pain. Solomon's gaze met Zora's across the stage. The world around them disappeared. He could only see her, the woman who had prayed in the fire, who had sung when hope was silent. The spirit moved, worship swelled, and as she reached the final verse, her voice broke. I am my beloved's, and my beloved is mine. Song of Solomon 6, verse 3. The crowd erupted in praise, a sound like rushing waters. Even the air seemed to tremble with glory. That evening they slipped away from the celebration, walking hand in hand through a quiet olive grove. Lanterns glowed softly among the trees. Somewhere distant voices still sang, but here only the sound of wind and heartbeat remained. Zara turned to him, eyes glistening. We've sung before thousands today, but somehow it still feels like the first day we sang under the apple tree. Solomon smiled, brushing a strand of hair from her face. That's because the garden never ended. God just moved it with us. She laughed gently, the sound like a psalm itself. And yet I still feel it's not complete. He looked at her for a long moment, then sank to one knee. Zara, my dove, my fair one, will you make the garden eternal? Tears streamed down her cheeks. Yes, she whispered, trembling, with all my heart. He slipped the ring on her finger once more, sealing the promise that had waited since Edenbrook. And as he rose, Zara lifted her hands to heaven. Set our hearts as a garden for your love, Lord. Let the rivers of your spirit water it forever. At that moment, a breeze swept through the grove. All its leaves shimmered. The scent of jasmine and myrrh filled the air. It was as though heaven itself whispered approval. Awake, O north wind, and come, thou south, blow upon my garden, that the spices thereof may flow out. From Song of Solomon 4, verse 16. Solomon drew her close, their foreheads touching as they prayed in silence. And somewhere within the stillness of that sacred place, they both felt it. The same voice that had called them through fire, storm, and waiting, now spoke peace. Love is as strong as death. Many waters cannot quench it. From Song of Solomon 8, verses 7. The stars emerged, glittering like the eyes of angels. The city lights of Jerusalem glowed below them, ancient, eternal, alive. Zara, Solomon whispered, our love began with a song, but I think it was never ours alone. It was God's, sung through us. She smiled through tears. Then may every heart that hears it remember, true love is not found. It is revealed by fire. He kissed her forehead gently, and when it is found, it sings forever. Together they turned toward the city, hand in hand, hearts sealed, souls aflame. The night around them hummed softly with the echoes of worship. Somewhere beyond the hills a new dawn raided, the dawn of everlasting love.
Thank you for listening. If you like this audio recording, kindly like the video and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any of our faith-based stories and Christian romance audio recordings.